My name is Ethan Tran. I'm 31 Vietnamese American, born and raised in a quiet suburb west of Portland, Oregon. My family was the classic middle-class immigrant household. Dad was an engineer at an electronics firm, Mom a librarian at the city library. Everything in our home was orderly, structured so much so that even the smallest deviation was treated like a moral failing. And I was the deviation. My sister Amanda is 4 years older than me, from the moment she could walk and talk. She was the pride of the family straight-A student, charming, always smiling at the right moments, and most importantly, the kind of daughter that made our parents feel like they'd done everything right. I was not that child. I could spend hours with my Lego sets no one understood, sketching in charcoal, hiding ideas in my head instead of saying them aloud. I wasn't good at pleasing people, and I was even worse at defending myself when accused. Once, during a Tet party our parents hosted for the local Vietnamese community, Mom asked me to keep an eye on the fruit display in the living room. A dragon fruit fell and bruised, and Amanda whispered, "Ethan knocked it over." Mom. That was all it took. Mom dragged me into the kitchen and hissed through clenched teeth, "You embarrassed the whole family." Do you even realize that I didn't cry? In our house, crying was also considered a flaw. From then on, every family gathering was Amanda's stage. Mom would parade her around, bragging about her grades, awards, her photos with the Honors Society. When it was my turn, the best I got was a forced smile. "This is Ethan. He's also studying something." In 7th grade, my English teacher, Miss Lively, pulled me aside after class. "Your essay moved me, Ethan. You really have a gift." It was the first time an adult said something kind to me without a side of judgment. I took that essay home like a trophy, handed it to Mom. She skimmed it, smirked, and said, "Amanda's been writing beautifully since she was little. Maybe you're just picking it up from her?" That sentence hit like a kick to the chest. I didn't argue. I folded the essay and stuffed it under my pillow. Never showed her another piece of writing again. I tried to fight back once, when I was 15. Amanda stole my bus pass to give to her boyfriend, and I got blamed for skipping school. I wrote a 3-page letter to my parents, detailing every time Amanda had manipulated or lied to them. I slipped it into Dad's desk drawer, thinking he'd read it before work. 3 days later, I found it ripped in half in the trash. Scrawled across it in Amanda's handwriting were the words, "He wrote this to tear our family apart. Not worth reading." I got the message. Any words from my mouth would be twisted by Amanda long before they reached my parents. So I stayed silent, just like every Asian kid gets taught. Don't make waves, don't talk back, don't bring shame to the family. I went to school, kept drawing, kept writing in journals. I lived in that house like I was renting a room. Meanwhile, Amanda only got more polished. I once caught her watching me sketch a portrait. Her look wasn't just curious, it was jealous. A sharp, hungry kind of jealousy. Like she couldn't stand the thought of me being better at anything. That's when it hit me. Amanda wasn't flawless. She was terrified of losing her only identity as the one who made our parents proud. When I turned 18, she got a car to drive to the state university. I got a scholarship to a private college and a part-time job at a used bookstore just to stay afloat. Every holiday I came home, I'd eat fast, do the dishes, and disappear to my room. I'd grown used to being the stranger in my own family. But being used to it didn't mean I accepted it. I kept everything, every ignored essay, every torn sketch, even that letter Amanda called not worth reading. I tucked them all into a black notebook and buried it at the bottom of my wooden drawer. I gave it a name one day. They'll have to listen. Here's the thing about someone who's been hurt for so long they stop expecting anything from anyone. I gave up on my parents' approval when I was 16, but I kept trying for me. I earned a full-ride scholarship to Whitman College, a small but prestigious liberal arts school in Walla Walla, Washington, while Amanda stayed in-state at Oregon State University, majoring in communications. I chose comparative literature. She sneered when she heard the news. Literature? She scoffed. What, going to write poverty novels and live off food stamps? I didn't respond. I'd grown used to her mocking everything I did. My parents weren't much better. Dad asked. They give scholarships for that. Mom gave me a once-over and muttered, maybe they're trying to diversify the student body. No one asked how many essays I had to write, how many nights I stayed awake revising, or how nerve-wracking the interviews were. To them, anything I achieved was either dumb luck or some kind of technicality. Meanwhile, Amanda could do no wrong. She posted photos with her boss on Facebook, captioned, "They called me an irreplaceable asset." Every time she came home, she brought gifts, high-end cosmetics, designer perfumes, home decor. I knew those weren't bought with her own money. Amanda had always been the type to borrow the company card and cleverly pass it off as a marketing expense. But my parents didn't care. To them, every gift was proof of her success and filial piety. I used to believe that if I succeeded, they'd finally see me differently. Sophomore year, I won first place in a regional writing contest. My essay, The Invisible Boy, a story about a child whose voice was ignored in his own family, was published in a national student journal. I printed out a hard copy, framed it, and brought it home for Thanksgiving. I placed it on the dinner table. No one touched it. Amanda laid pumpkin pie right beside it and said, "You're still hanging on to this cute. Makes a nice keepsake." I laughed, and for the first time, right there at the dinner table, I laughed out loud. "Do you even know who this story's about?" Amanda said nothing, but her eyes, sharp, cold, and strung tight like a wire, said everything I needed to know. That night, while cleaning up, Mum tossed the frame under the stairwell cabinet and muttered, "Grown man still obsessed with old wounds." I picked it up, took it with me to the hotel. I didn't stay the night at home. Not anymore. On the drive back to campus, I looked at the framed essays sitting in my suitcase, thought about everything I'd earned, and realized something to them. I would always just be Ethan, the one who's also doing something at school. One cold winter afternoon, I walked back to my dorm through the misty rain of Washington. Ms. Lively, my old English teacher, called me over video. She asked if I'd considered applying for the Gates Scholarship Program. I hesitated, told her I wasn't sure I deserved it. She looked me in the eye through the screen and said, "Ethan, some kids grow up in the spotlight. You grew up in the wings, but tell me who writes the script." Those words, gentle, almost soft, cut deep into my chest. She was the only adult who had ever seen me, unfiltered by Amanda's version of me. I applied. I got in. And in my senior year, I was invited to a National Scholars Conference in Boston, my first time standing on a stage, telling the story of how I found my way out of the shadows. I texted a photo of the event to my mum. She left me on read. No response. That was the moment I let go. I stopped writing to prove anything. I stopped speaking so others would understand. I started writing for me about the invisible kids, about the truths no one wants to hear, about the adults who spend their lives trapped in the roles they were assigned. The last time I came home, Amanda had become the marketing director of a fashion brand in Seattle. She showed up for Tet in a silk dress, heels clicking, speaking to Mom in that soft, polished MBA voice. I sat in the corner and watched. The neighborhood kids ran to her, shouting, "Auntie Mandy's so pretty." Me, I cleared dishes after dinner, washed the pans, mopped the floors, just another shadow in a house that no longer felt real. But for the first time, it didn't hurt. It was funny. Because I saw it clearly, what she lived was a role, a well-maintained performance. And me, even if I was still invisible to them, I was finally becoming real. I never thought I'd be kicked out of my own home. Not in the angry go live somewhere else kind of way, but thrown out like a stranger. It was the summer I turned 20. I just started to feel like I was finally stepping out of the shadows when the past landed another punch straight to the face. Amanda sent a voice message to Mom, but by accident, she sent it to the entire family group chat. That evening, I was still on campus. I saw the notification light up my screen. Mom, Ethan. Ethan used your bank card. I just saw him booking a flight with it on the school computer. I sat frozen in my dorm room, heart clenched like a fist. It wasn't true. I'd never not once had access to Mom's bank info. I had no money, no travel plans, no reason to buy a plane ticket. But that single lie undid everything I'd worked for over 20 years to build. That night, my father sent me a single message. Don't come home. We're tired of all this. I didn't call back, didn't text. I just sat there under the yellow light of my desk lamp, my laptop still open to a half-finished essay. The mini-fridge was empty. My bank account had $73 to its name. My scholarship covered tuition and books, but not housing or food. Before, my mum used to send $200 a month to help with meals. After that message, the money stopped. Completely. I had to leave the dorms. I didn't qualify for continued housing, so I crashed in a friend's old Mazda for a while, the kind of car that smelled like sweat and expired snacks. I found a dishwashing job at a Vietnamese restaurant downtown. Evening shifts, 6 p.m. to midnight. On the worst nights, I'd fall asleep in the storage room, wedged between crates of sriracha and damp kitchen rags. Some nights, I'd sit out by the back door of the restaurant, smoking a borrowed cigarette, thinking, no one knows I'm here. No one cares. I called Amanda once, just once. I didn't yell. I just asked why she didn't deny it. Didn't even try to justify it. All she said was, because you need to learn how to survive without anyone backing you. You should thank me. This'll make you stronger. I hung up. My heart didn't break. It just went silent. Like it understood that asking for justice from someone without a conscience was a waste of breath. The next week, I waited 3 hours at the student counseling office just to talk to someone named Carlos, a former Latino student who now ran a program called Students Without Safety Nets for those who'd lost their families, their housing, or both. I told him everything. Not to get sympathy. I just needed to know if there was still a way forward. Carlos listened. He didn't interrupt once. When I finished, he asked only one thing. Do you want to quit? I shook my head. Good, he said. Then live like no one's behind you. No hope, no blame, no begging. Eyes forward. Got it, I nodded. And for the first time in months, I didn't feel completely alone. From that point on, I survived on 3 part-time jobs washing dishes, tutoring literature, and ghostwriting travel articles for a blog under the name E.T. Nomad. I spent weekends in the library, recording lectures because I was too exhausted to retain anything, sipping on watery gas station coffee that barely tasted like anything. But I didn't quit. Not because I was strong, but because I knew if I gave up, they'd be right. Forever. At the end of that year, I wrote one sentence in my black notebook: you can break because of your family, or you can grow from the pieces they left you in. 3 years after being kicked out of my family's house, I stood in the middle of the college quad, clutching my honours diploma with dry, unshed eyes, no flowers, no family, no applause from the crowd when my name was called. Just the early summer wind brushing past the frayed edges of my graduation gown and a photo I snapped on a tripod using my battered old phone. But I had survived. No home, no sister, no faith left in the people who raised me. But I still had the one thing that mattered, Will. After graduation, I accepted an unpaid internship at a small non-profit in Portland that supported at-risk students. I moved into the office's book storage room, tiny, windowless, but quiet. Each night, I rolled out my sleeping bag between 2 filing cabinets, reading about child psychology and drafting the kind of education plans I'd wished existed back when I was the forgotten kid. I started teaching part-time in public middle schools, running creative writing support classes for 6th to 8th graders. They were just like I'd been labelled as difficult, unmotivated, or emotionally unstable. I saw myself in their downcast eyes, in their ink-streaked draft, in the way they hesitated before reading their work aloud. I didn't teach them to write beautifully. I taught them to write to survive. When the program ended, some of them wrote me letters. One said, "It's the first time I felt like my words mattered." Another simply wrote, "I don't know who you are, but I know I'm different now because of your class." I kept every note in an old wooden box. And whenever I found myself slipping back into memories of the life I'd escaped, I'd open that box and read every word like a dose of antidote. At 27, I received a grant from an independent education fund to build a transitional school, a space for kids failed by the traditional system. No forced discipline, no sorting by GPA, no cold, standardized testing. We called it Compass House Academy. It was built inside a repurposed warehouse in Hillsborough, white walls, tall glass windows, desks made from reclaimed wood. No class had more than 12 students, each supported by a teacher and a trauma-informed counselor. Our philosophy wasn't written in textbooks, it lived in listening. I never put my name on the school. On paper, I signed everything simply as E.T., the same initials I used back when I ghostwrote travel blogs from gas stations and bus stops. I didn't want fame, I wanted impact. I wanted kids like the one I used to be to have a place where they could learn, write, exist without having to ask for permission. That same year, I moved into a small third-floor apartment in the Pearl District. Nothing fancy, but it had a balcony that overlooked the streetcar line. Every morning, I'd brew coffee, listen to the soft screech of steel on steel, and write, not to prove anything anymore, but to unwind the knots Amanda and my family had tied inside me for most of my life. The only time I heard anything about Amanda during that period was through an old classmate. Apparently, she'd gotten married, had 2 kids, and was now the marketing director for a fashion retail chain. They said she was successful, elegant, living the dream. I didn't feel jealous, just intrigued, because after working with hundreds of wounded children, I had never seen a pair of eyes quite like Amanda's eyes that looked like they knew they were living in a mask no one was allowed to touch. One afternoon, while organizing the supply closet at Compass, I stumbled across my old black notebook, the one I'd carried through all those years on the edge. The cover was worn, corners frayed, but every page was still intact, the betrayals. Amanda's exact words, my mother's handwriting, scraps of paper I salvaged from dormitory trash bins. I read through it, then I smiled. And on the last page, I wrote a final line. They don't have to listen anymore, because now I'm the one with the mic. The first time I saw Amanda's name in Compass's student system was on a grey Monday morning at the start of fall. Usually, I didn't handle admissions personally. That was up to the admin team. I only reviewed special cases, students needing deep psychological support, those with complex family backgrounds or histories of school-based trauma. But that day, there was a thicker file than usual on my desk, clipped with a red, sticky note. Urgent, full scholarship request, handwritten application from student, the name that hit me first, Ellie Davison, age 10, parent Amanda Davison. I forgot to breathe for a moment. Davison, that was Amanda's married name. She'd taken it when she got married. 2 kids. Ellie and Mason. I hadn't realized they were already that old. I carefully opened the folder. Inside was a handwritten letter from Ellie. Her script was round but shaky. My name is Ellie. I'm in 5th grade. My mom says I'm really smart, but I know she's sad all the time. She cries every night. Mason, my little brother, likes to sleep under the bed when she cries. I don't want to go to my old school anymore. They call me weird. I'm not weird. I just like reading more than talking. If I can go to Compass, I promise I'll try really hard. I'll stay quiet if the teachers want. Just please don't let my mum cry anymore. By the time I reached the last line, I had to stop. I couldn't tell what was breaking inside me, bitterness, fury, or just the hollow echo of an old memory buried too deep, a kid crouched in the kitchen, ears ringing from screaming voices and no one ever asking what he thought. I closed the file, said nothing. The next day, I met with the academic team and approved full scholarships for both Ellie and Mason under the designation of anonymous sponsor. I had one request: I wanted to teach the creative writing class that Ellie would be in. Amanda had no idea I was the person behind Compass, no clue that the school she was begging for was the very place I'd built with blood, sleep deprivation, and every ounce of pain she once gave me. I didn't know why she chose Compass. Maybe she was desperate. Maybe every other private school had turned her away, either because of the tuition or because Mason had once punched a classmate for calling him the psycho lady's kid. In the application form, Amanda wrote, "I'm recently divorced, unemployed, and can no longer afford private school." I understand I'm not entitled to priority, but if you've ever been a mother, you know what it feels like to not be able to protect your children. A part of me wanted to scream, "What about my mother? Did she feel powerless when she believed you were an angel and threw me out like garbage?" But then I saw Ellie on her first day. She wore a worn-out grey sweater, her backpack strap slightly torn, shrinking into the corner of the classroom like she was asking herself, "Am I allowed to be here?" I saw Mason, 6 years old, clutching a stuffed dinosaur as the nurse took his height. He didn't speak, just blinked slowly when asked his name, and I realized the kids weren't guilty. They were just aftermath. Amanda came to school only once to sign enrollment papers. I watched through the office camera. She wore a white button-up, jeans, sneakers, no heels, no silk dresses, no nude lipstick carefully matched to her skin tone like she used to wear in every picture-perfect public appearance. Just a tired woman, gaunt, dark circles under her eyes, her hand trembling as she signed. I thought I'd feel vindicated seeing her like that, but I didn't. I felt nothing. Because no revenge ever feels complete when children are crying in the background. That evening, Ellie turned in her first writing assignment, prompt "If I were the wind." She wrote, "If I were the wind, I'd go where people are scared. I'd whisper in their ears, 'It's okay, I'm here.' And if my mum was sad, I'd dry her tears. I'd make her laugh, even when she says, 'Don't tell anyone I'm this weak.'" I read it 3 times, each time. It hurt more. Amanda once taught me how to stay silent in pain. Now, her daughter was teaching me how to write sorrow without needing revenge. I used to think that if the day ever came, the day I had the upper hand over Amanda, I would savor every second of it. I imagined 100 different scenarios: a dramatic confrontation, a truth unveiled in public, forcing her to kneel and beg for forgiveness for the years she choked the life out of me. But when that day finally came, I did the one thing Amanda had never once done for me. I stayed silent and watched. For the first 3 months, Ellie and Mason attended Compass. I kept my identity hidden. I taught Ellie's creative writing class once a week as a rotating instructor, blending in, leaving no footprint. She called me Mr. Ethan, politely, timidly, always sitting in the back and writing like she was trying to disappear into her own words. Mason was in a lower grade. I only saw him at lunch or through security footage. He didn't speak much, but every time Ellie stepped onto the playground, he ran straight to her and hugged her legs. They didn't need words. Just being near each other was enough. I started reading Ellie's writing more carefully, and from her pages I saw something I had once longed for someone to see in me: pain, carefully wrapped in language. One day, after class, when I handed out a new assignment, Ellie lingered. "Mr. Ethan, is it bad to write about grown-ups who make you sad?" I looked at her and asked gently. "Why do you think it might be wrong?" She hesitated, then whispered, "Because my mum says not to tell anyone." She says people won't understand, that they'll think she's crazy. I knelt, met her eyes. Writing isn't for judgment. It's for understanding. And when you understand something, only then can you forgive it. The next week, Ellie handed me a paper titled, "Grown-ups Have Wet Secrets Too." Sometimes my mum gets angry, then cries right after. One day she says she loves me. The next, she says I'm a burden. She stares out the window like someone's out there stopping her from breathing. She once told me that as a kid, she had to fight for love because there were too many children in her house. She said, "If you don't shine, you'll get swallowed." I don't know what "get swallowed" means, but I think maybe my mum used to be a kid afraid of the dark, and now she's trying to draw light with her voice. I didn't know how to respond. I sat for 15 minutes, pen trembling in my hand. Finally, I wrote, "Some truths are too beautiful to deny even when they come from pain." After that, Ellie began to trust me. She'd come early, stay late. One time I saw her carefully sewing Mason's backpack strap with red thread. When I asked, she shrugged and said, "Mom forgets a lot now, so I have to learn how to do everything." I started arranging therapy sessions for both Ellie and Mason discreetly, under the sponsorship of an anonymous donor, not because I feared Amanda knowing, but because I wasn't ready to make her kids witnesses to a confrontation full of unresolved ghosts. Instead, I set one silent condition. If Amanda wanted her children to continue attending Compass on scholarship, she had to participate in mandatory parental counseling sessions as required by policy for all special assistance families. She couldn't refuse. No one knew I would be leading the first session not as the founder, but as the director of special student programs. The meeting took place in a small conference room, soft lights overhead. Amanda walked in, visibly guarded. She wore a grey cardigan, her hair hastily tied back, dark circles heavy under her eyes. Not the Amanda I remembered, no heels, no silk, no glossed lips curated for the spotlight. Just a fragile woman, pale and shaky, holding a pen that quivered as she signed in. "Hello, Miss Davison," I said evenly. Extending a hand, she paused, almost flinched at the name Ethan. But she didn't ask. We sat down. I spoke about Mason's isolation, Ellie's signs of mild depression, and the importance of family engagement. Amanda said nothing the entire session. When I recommended family therapy, she simply nodded. At the end, as I stood up to pack away my notes, she finally spoke, barely above a whisper. You're Ethan, aren't you?" I didn't turn around. Just answered, "Not all Ethans are the same, Ms. Davison." And I walked out. That night, Ellie turned in an essay I've kept ever since. Title: "The One Who Doesn't Need to Shout to Be Heard." He doesn't tell us his story, but I think he understands what it feels like when silence is everywhere. I think he's the first person who ever truly heard me, even when I hadn't finished speaking. I folded the paper, didn't write a comment, just slipped it into the wooden box with all the others, the letters, the notes, the proof that I survived. And the reminder that even if not everyone pays for the pain they caused, I still get to choose to become a warped echo of the past, or the quiet teacher helping kids find a way out of it. At the end of the school year, Compass hosted a ceremony to honor students who had made remarkable personal growth, a new tradition I introduced to shift how we evaluate children, not by grades, but by the journey of becoming. Ellie was nominated. Her essay, Writing So I Don't Disappear, was selected to be read on stage by the board. I didn't intervene. I read it quietly, over email, and said nothing like I always did. Some adults think kids don't notice anything. But we see everything: the heavy phone calls, the crying at night, the look on Mum's face when she sits in the car too long after picking us up. I used to think I was invisible, but a teacher showed me I still exist, even when adults don't want to see me. When Ellie's name was called, I stepped back from the curtain backstage. I stood in the shadows, silently watching, Amanda sat in the third row. She wore a plain dress, her hair loose, no makeup, just a woman trying to hold herself together, one breath at a time. As Ellie began reading, the auditorium fell silent. No whispers, no giggles. Just the voice of a child, clear, trembling at times, who had once been afraid of being seen by adults. I didn't look at Amanda. I didn't have to. Somehow, I knew she was finally beginning to understand the kind of understanding that doesn't come through explanation, but through a mirror held up by truth, too sharp to ignore. After Ellie's reading, I took the stage to give the closing remarks. Some of our students come to Compass because no one else will take them. But today, they don't need acceptance. They deserve recognition that their existence is not some glitch in someone else's life. I paused, scanning the crowd, not searching for Amanda, but not avoiding her either. We adults aren't always right. Sometimes, we're the ones who make the children we love feel like burdens, just for existing. I set the mic down. As I stepped off stage, Ellie ran up and hugged me, tight, no words, like she was afraid I'd disappear if she let go. And then, from across the room, I saw Amanda rise. She didn't approach, she just stood there, clutching her purse strap, eyes red. I nodded at her. No smile, no forgiveness, but no more rage either. The next day, a letter arrived, handwritten, unsigned, addressed to the school Ethan. If you're reading this, you probably know why I'm writing. I used to believe that if I let you succeed, you'd be loved more than me. And I couldn't bear that. I never imagined the price would be my own children learning what love really means from someone I once tried to destroy. I'm not asking for forgiveness. But if one day you read Ellie's essay and think, maybe I got something right, then please, let that be enough to accept this thank you. I know I lost a family, but my children found themselves. And you did what no one in our family ever dared to do. You didn't seek revenge through cruelty. You offered compassion without conditions. I folded the letter and placed it in the wooden box next to Ellie's essay, the torn note from my mother, and a copy of the letter I wrote at 15, the one Amanda had once ripped in half. A month later, I signed the contract to open Compass's second campus in Seattle. Standing in the lobby of the new building, I looked at the blank wall along the hallway. That's where I'll hang Ellie's essay. No name, no logo, no insignia, just a small plaque that reads, "The child once silenced now teaches others to speak. I, Ethan Tran, am no longer anyone's shadow. I am the one who learned how to turn pain into a place to stand, and sometimes that is the only victory that ever truly matters."